I am recording this call, and my apologies, everyone, but for whatever reason, Facebook is not letting me do the Facebook Live, so we will post that to the group from the recording. All right, but great to have all you wonderful people back. My name is Justin Phillips. I hope you're fantastic. I hope you've had a great couple of weeks. I have been camping at Woodford Bush Week. It has been awesome. I really highly encourage anyone to get along to Woodford Bush Week. Woodford is a Wood 40er is a big festival area where there's a great festival between Christmas and New Year's, or just from day after Boxing Day. I think it's the 27th to the 1st, 27th of December to the 1st of January in Southeast Queensland, Woodford. And it's amazing. And so that's where I was last week having a grand old time. So, as I said, my apologies for whatever reason the Facebook Live is not working today. Facebook's changed the rules again. So please, if you've got people that you have invited to come on to the call, send them the link. I'll put the link in the chat box for this Zoom so that they can still join us and join in the conversation. And our amazing guest has arrived. Let me introduce, AKA the Lifestyle Medicine Man, Jost. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Justin Phillips, streaming in from Bribie Island, Southeast Queensland. Having a grand old time. Beautiful weather here. Been doing the gardening and wicking beds this morning. Absolutely loving it. So my wife and I, Nicole Dennis, my wife and myself, live here, and we're very passionate about empowering people with health and happiness and prosperity, and sharing our extraordinary life experiences and lessons that we have learnt. And one of those is, of course, the amazing Jost, who I was introduced to when he was the supervising lecturer at the student acupuncture clinic at the Australian College of Natural Medicine. And I thought he was a dude and a pretty extraordinary guy. And I'm very, very grateful for many years of wisdom from him ever since. And for those of you that don't know Jost, you really need to get to know him. So Jost was born in 1958 in Germany. Jost is a doctor of Chinese medicine. He's been studying, and he's been a therapist since 1991. So obviously he's been studying for a long time in traditional Chinese medicine. His background is health and fitness, and he's always had a major passion for competitive skiing, snow skiing at the national level, bodybuilding, triathlon, Ironman training, all this sort of stuff. But when he discovered Kung Fu and Tai Chi, he realized that fitness is only part of the equation, and that vitality is the other. And this led to decades more research into how to live using nutritional supplements, optimal diet, therapeutic exercise, weightlifting, martial arts, meditation, Tai Chi, yoga, and redox signaling molecules to make you feel good. And then Jost added in the 24-hour movement of Qi, and that is the ultimate in lifestyle medicine. It's founded on thousands of years of Chinese medicine, and with over 30 years of Jost's academic research and practical observations from living it, plus being the author of many books, an inspiring speaker and renowned practitioner. Thank you very much for joining us, Jost. You are amazing. And the crowd goes wild. Yeah, all right, fantastic. Just imagine thousands of people, live audience. Yep, like that's not going to happen right now, but we can pretend.
All right, yeah. Big stadium full. Yeah, political debate.
How are you, mate? Hope you've had a fantastic week.
Yeah, it's a bit cold suddenly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but awesome gardening weather, because you can go out and get really hot and sweaty and, go hard and still be enjoying it. It's not too hot.
But the climate is heating up with all these debates about what's going on and where do we belong and what's the future, who is real, what is true.
Absolutely.
All that stuff that's happening now. It's a lot of stuff hitting the fan soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like American politics going mad. Saw some of the presidential debate yesterday. That was kind of not very presidential, but it's kind of interesting. So amongst the chaos, we're going to talk about and continue sharing this extraordinary wisdom that we've had so many interviews on now. But today is really about how to heal yourself, right? So the difference between health and healing. And I always say to people that, healing is a choice, and it's an internal choice. It's almost like a deep, energetic, almost spiritual decision. Yes, of course, we scratch ourselves, our body's going to naturally heal. But, to come through health challenges like I have and my wife's had, my wife had the fatigue issue for 25 years. I had Lyme disease, two types of Lyme disease, mycoplasma, and ultimately an autoimmune disease from that. And I was literally dying. I couldn't get out of bed to feed myself. It was a very deep commitment and decision to healing, along with so many great technologies like redox and nutrition and herbs and bioresonance and all, heaps of cool stuff, qigong and things like that. But so today we're going to learn about the wisdom of the ages from traditional Chinese medicine in that.
Yeah, because in Chinese medicine, the highest form of the application of the medicine is actually the journey of the healing, whereas health is not necessary healing. So I give a good example of that. If you wake up and you just focus on what you should have for breakfast in terms of what you put in your smoothie, for example, what you're going to put in there, that is health. If you wake up and then engage with your symptoms, with your pains, and you process them, that is healing.
Yeah, that's cool. So engaging with the pain, with the dis-ease, and this is like the concept that we've been, for me, I've only learned this year, really, how foundational it is to the journey of life is the battle.
Yes. This is where healing and health are two different things. Like all the talk is about health. Like if I focus on what smoothies to take, how much should I become vegan or non-vegan, or should I become the latest hit is now become a raw vegan. So it's obviously all that is in fact health, but not necessarily healing. Mm-hmm. In Chinese medicine and in the Taoist philosophy, the part of the healing, it's about engaging with your symptoms and making the symptom your purpose and your meaning. So you're developing a meaning relationship with the symptom. And as you engage with the symptom, you're actually engaging with the whole journey of what you're here for. It's a totally different process. So that means you may not do the smoothies or you do the smoothies, you're vegan or you're meat eater. It's irrelevant. It's about how you engage with your symptoms and the meaning you develop with your symptoms. That determines how you heal.
Yeah.
This is why a lot of the masters are very contradictory in their advice. Some eat meat, some don't. Some eat vegetables. Some only do air. Other people drink lots of alcohol. Some masters smoke cigarettes. It just, and to meet them, you'll find someone who's very self-realized. They are in their own body. They have understood how to grasp themselves. And you realize when you meet them that the aura that they radiate has an impact on you. And it starts you looking into your own inner world. So really what they have in common is that they have understood how to engage with each of their symptoms and have put the symptoms in line to eternity, to infinity. They have put their symptoms into a journey, and that then becomes your process. So it's your practice. So it's a totally different world where suddenly everything becomes meaningful rather than you got a symptom and you do health in order to somehow eradicate it. It's a totally different approach. You know?
Yeah. Yep.
So as a result of that is you have a totally different outcome. And when you focus on the journey of healing, you actually are, the outcome is you are free. You know, so you're actually able to engage with the second screen. All what I see is something black here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I am getting a bit of feedback. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I'm just going to. Oh, yep. I've got to mute a couple of people.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see you. Can you see me?
Suddenly everything became black. All right.
Can't have the light without the darkness.
Yeah. So obviously what we're doing here is in Chinese medicine, we're trying to get a relationship to what is actually the purpose of the symptoms rather than trying to override it. Yeah. Yep. So in the focus of today is to look at what is actually the purpose of healing and what actually is healing and how it differs to health. Because once you understand the differences, you have more freedom in life. Yes. Yeah. That means you may drink a glass of wine or not, you may vegan or not vegan, it's irrelevant because you have a relationship, a meaningful relationship with your symptoms and your pains and you transform them and process them on a daily basis. And that moves you towards your soul, and you are engaging with your soul. So you're not caught up in the logistics of what is health and should I have this vegan or should I not be vegan and things like that. So it makes life much easier.
Yeah. Yep. To me, it's like learning to love the disease, right? Like the dis-ease or the illness, the state of ill is like it's messages, right? It's messages from the soul.
Yes,
And
yes.
like I had a lot of symptoms, right? I had bizarre symptoms at the age of 18, moving pain, spasms moving around my body, and Western medicine's their answer was to take some drugs that were crap drugs. They weren't even good. All right. And then the other option was to do exploratory surgery. Oh yeah. Like just cut me open, start playing with my spine because you don't have a clue what's going on. I just found that so primitive, so barbaric. And that's, thank God I found Chinese medicine when I was very young, because then I started to learn about, it's just balance and different extremes. And, the symptoms were a sign. And I learned to love my disease, and 20 years of suffering I look at as a blessing because it transformed my life, the purpose of my life.
Yeah, this is the difference. It will meet you to greatness. If you engage with your symptom and you actually know what to do about it, it will move you towards greatness. If you focus just on health, the progress is very slow. You're not necessarily moved towards greatness. You may have a very slim body. You may have like what they call a nice, vibrant skin, and you got really skinny abs and whatever. But your life is not necessarily meaningful.
Yeah, that is so true. Does anyone know people that look gorgeous, like the Insta? Not all of them, but some of the Insta people, right? They look like their life is perfect, but they're a complete wreck. Like behind the pretty picture, they are a disaster. I've been to some of the best resorts in the world, thank goodness, because luckily the company I work with, they provide me with amazing reward trips, and I've been for 5-star, 6-star resorts all over the world. I'm very, very grateful for that. And you see people that go to these resorts purely to take pictures of themselves. You're not in the moment.
Yeah, in order to get whatever, it looks good. So obviously it's a good starting point, but it's not all there is. It's a good starting point, but it will not take you to the meaning. The meaning will require for you to get in touch with your symptom, but then you may not need to have the vegan breakfast. Then you may not have the salad lunch. Then you can actually have freedom. So the beauty of the healing journey is you're more free to do whatever you need to be doing. So you become more joyful. Yes. Like there's a lot of Instagram, incredible influencers who just they look really amazing in terms of the skin and the hair and everything, but they really focus on the health. But you look at the eyes, and the joy is lacking.
Yeah, it's sad.
Joy is lacking. That means they're not allowing themselves to experience the joy. And so the beauty of making your life into a healing journey is that you actually are free of those conceptual ideas about what you're supposed to be doing, because your body is guiding you.
Yeah. To me, I see those people, I feel like they've missed the point. They've missed the point of life. Rather
than some concept. And this is what we're getting now. We're getting a lot of, now in my line of work, having observed people ever since, 30 years, whatever. It's just the last couple of years, I've noticed a lot of confusion in terms of what is actually health. What do I need to be doing? Because there's so many contradictory advice going on Instagram now, on social media, that people get more and more lost about what to do. Yes.
Yep.
And so that's why the purpose of today is obviously looking into it. What is actually the essence of healing? Because if you look into healing, it's a totally different journey. Yeah. And it actually goes in 3 steps. And first of all, the first step is understand who you are.
Yeah.
Understand who you are. This is obviously what I'm going to elaborate on today. Know what to do. If you understand who you are, you then focus on, you need to know what to do. Then act. So unfortunately, what we see now with a lot of, due to mass exposure to information, is people act first, then trying to know what to do, and then somehow trying to make sense of themselves. So they reverse the order. Yes.
Yep.
Whereas first of all, it's about understand who you are, know what to do, then act. So there's 2 steps before you do anything, and go those 2 steps first. And that means you actually are on a trajectory that's much faster and much more effective and more joyful than the other way, which is most likely leading to confusion and irritation, irritability, and then give up because what's the point? I feel shit. Might as well drink. At least I feel better because I can get drunk.
Yeah, get an artificial change.
Or at least I eat as much as I want in terms of cake because at least I feel good then. Yeah. Whereas in the other way, the other health part, I don't feel good. I deprive myself, and what's the point? Yeah.
Yep.
So obviously when we go the path of healing, we actually discovering the joy of the soul coming forward, and that is a totally different dimension. So, so that's obviously it means always when the journey of healing is always of purpose, is always meaningful, it always is spiritual. Yeah. So this is obviously the first thing what we're going to do. So I'm going to look into it, and so the mantra is, I don't fix myself, I move towards greatness. That's the mantra.
I don't fix myself.
I don't fix myself. It's not about fixing myself. It's about I move towards greatness. So the focus is not on fixing. The focus is on greatness. Yeah.
Yep.
Because what happened then is I will actually be part of the bigger picture, and now purpose is coming into it.
Yep.
So I'm going to talk about the 5 base elements that everyone on this world is attached to. We can't get away from, and I'm going to explain why that is in a minute. But what I'm saying here is, for example, anxiety. The idea is not to fix the anxiety, but the idea is to look at anxiety as your starting point. And as you heal your anxiety, or by the time you understand who you are and you engage with what you need to be doing, you're then moving towards a greatness, because what happens is you're actually discovering in there a process that will make you become a leader. You will start sharing with others. So by the time you have moved into greatness and you're of impact to others, the starting point was you with anxiety. I've never met a person who lives in greatness who didn't come from a point of weakness.
Yeah. Yep.
There's always a weakness. There's always a weakness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that first of all, we need to understand that whatever the starting point is, that's what we need to focus on as being our set point to move towards. The idea is not to correct it. Mm-hmm. The idea is to transform it. For example, if you get anxiety, you take it to a doctor and you take medication, you're taking away the journey.
Yep. Symptom. Just putting the Band-Aid, depressing it.
Yeah, but that means you will not be able to actually discover the purpose underlying it. So it will mask it. So you're moving away, getting away from it. Whereas if you go into the healing aspect of anxiety, it will take you to your soul. It will take it to your core. It will take it to the hub of the wheel. And now you start moving forward in your center rather than getting caught up in the periphery and one reactive pattern after another. Yes. So you're actually becoming more and more centered. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What I mean with understand who you are is your chi type, your element type, basically who you are in your nature. For example, in my line of work, that's where the yin and yang types coming into. Yeah. And we talked about in one of the webinars a while ago, I think it was 4 webinars ago, are you a yin type or a yang type?
Yeah, it was a great.
So that's obviously, I'll tell everyone, in case you're not familiar with yin types and yang types, go back to that webinar. Okay, what I mean with that is I've seen a lot of people in my time who are yang types. And so they are then engaged with practices that would suit a yin type. So they seek information on Instagram about how to evoke health because they don't feel good about themselves. They need help, but they engage with the practice of a yin type. No, they're not getting. So a yang type is always very intense. The yang type is what I talked about it so many times. It's like a racehorse, like a tiger, versus a cow with a yin type. Yeah. Yep. So you can't say the cow is better or worse than the tiger. Yep. Everything is part of an ecosystem. You know, without the cow, we wouldn't have a lot of things. Without the tiger, we wouldn't have a lot of things. Yeah. Everything plays its part. Yin types, yang types. So you got yang types, yin types. So in my line of work, I've seen a lot of yang types engaging with the practice of what a cow would benefit. But they are a racehorse. So they need to obviously engage with who they are. They need to get into their intensity. They need to engage with who they are on a deep core level. So for them, like for example, a yang type listening to social media advice, I need to get into mindfulness. Mindfulness is healthy. I need to get meditation. Meditation is healthy. So what they do is they wake up and then they sit down for half an hour and try to focus on mindfulness. Okay, that may work for a cow because a cow likes to sit there and stare. Mm-hmm. But it will not work for a Kelpie dog or a tiger who needs to run. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then the yang type trying to do the meditation, the mindfulness, and then gets more and more aggravated and then realizes, this health stuff is not for me, and then gives up. Of course, it's the wrong practice for the wrong type, vice versa. So first of all, we need to understand who we are. We need to understand, are we yin or yang? So we need, the healing journey requires us to engage with your relevant level of intensity. That's what a healing journey is. The healing journey means I need to understand my level of intensity. The level of intensity of a cow is different to the intensity of a tiger. But you have people in this world who are tigers and who are the cow. Or some people have the intensity of a donkey and the other people have the intensity of a racehorse. Both are important. Like you can't take a donkey to the Melbourne Cup, and doesn't matter how much money you invest in training the donkey will not win the Melbourne Cup. Yep. Yeah. But you will take the donkey to Colombia and you smuggle $2 million worth of cocaine over the border.
Because the racehorse can't climb those mountains.
The racehorse can't do that. Yes. Because the donkey needs to sit there and stare. And yeah. Whereas the racehorse needs to race. Yes. Yeah. So this is where obviously it gets very, very tricky in terms of who we are. But naturally speaking, everyone has got a very specific level of intensity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like you can tell that in the political debate, the intensity between Trump and Biden, they're not on match. There's no match.
Yeah. Trump's much more yang, right? He's like bang, bang, bang.
He's like super intense, too intense to look at the detail. Yeah.
Yeah, he could have chilled out a bit. He would have been more effective.
Yeah. But Biden looks too much on the detail. Yeah. But not enough on the yang. So obviously everyone so you can see every human being's got a lot of different things. So when it comes to a healing journey, it is about engaging with our symptoms. But that first of all needs to understand how we're going to do that. And in order to do that, we need to understand, first of all, our level of intensity. So the more intense you are, the more intense the engagement with the symptom is. Yes. So a high intense person needs more like the high rigorous training of CrossFit, whereas a more yin type is quite happy to go with the other way. Yes. But each meet within their own center of reflecting in terms of their intensity as a level of balance. It feels right for them. Yes. So meaning, we can't follow absolute advice. This is what I've noticed. One of the biggest problems we have in the healing industry, or health industry, is that people apply absolute advice to them, and that's not possible. Yep. Chinese medicine is always contextual. We always got to look at first of who you are. Yeah. Yep. And so that's obviously what we need to bring in. Yep. So then what happens now is you've got a starting point. So you understand your level of intensity. And once you understand your level of intensity, you then trying to get a match with the relevant practice that will evoke the healing journey or support the healing journey. Mm-hmm. So for example, there's different forms of yoga. There's a beautiful, loving yin yoga, then which can be very intense, but then there's Ashtanga yoga, that's more in the yang type. Then there is the beautiful yang style Tai Chi, and then there's a hardcore Chen style, which is just so yang, it's beyond comprehension that people even can't consider it as Tai Chi because it's so fast, bang, 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 bang. And so, but each of them are called Tai Chi, but they resonate on the spectrum of low intensity to high intensity. Yeah.
Yep.
So, so that's the first thing we need to. So when we wake up, we need to engage with our symptoms, and that requires to understand our level of intensity in order to get into it. Yeah.
Yep.
So what happens now is that each of us who comes into this world is dominated also by a specific element. So the 5-element theory is the basis in Chinese medicine to describe the dynamic of how the physical works. So I mentioned that a few times when Chinese medicine is primarily concerned about the spiritual journey rather than just the physical, because our moment being here in the physical in context to the bigger is very short. So in Chinese medicine, we always need to remind ourselves that the day for me to die will come very soon. So it's not like, it's in the distant future, it will happen. And that means our existence here was only temporary. And so therefore, in Chinese medicine, we're more concerned about looking at the bigger picture rather than just getting caught up in this moment of this lifetime, which is in the bigger picture, a very short spectrum. It's only a very short phase. And so by the time we are ready to depart, by the time we die, we realize how quick it went.
Mm.
Yes, that's what everyone in respite care is saying, that people will die suddenly realize, my God, it went so quick.
Mm. And yet when we're a kid, we're like, I want to be older, want to be older, want to be bigger.
Yeah.
It's like they're on the opposite spectrum. They can't wait for things to happen. And then as we're older, we're like, whoa, slow down. Things are going by so fast.
Yeah. So this is obviously where we need to be aware that we're only here for a short time. And that means that our nature is far more profound than what we perceive in the physical. And in our true nature, as a spirit, as a soul, it's limitless. And we got so many dimensions, it's multi-dimensional. But when we incarnate, everything gets compressed. So what the Chinese say is, when we incarnate into the physical, we enter the physical via a portal. And that portal is the 4-dimensional world, which is regulated by the 5 elements. So this physical world cannot exist without the dynamic of the 5 elements, which is called the 5 phases of creation. So that is wood, fire, earth, metal, water. So the wood feeds the fire. The fire becomes ash, and that turns into earth. The earth evaporates, it becomes air, which is metal. The air then clouds, it's starting to rain, which is water, it makes the wood grow. The wood then feeds the fire then becomes ash, which turns into earth. The earth then evaporates, clouds, water, and so on. It goes on forever. Yeah. So you can't take metal out of the equation, the physical would collapse. Mm-hmm. So Chinese medicine has understood several thousand years ago that it's all because of the 5 elements. So you don't have 6 elements, nor do you have 4 elements. It's just 5, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And this is the infinite process, because as long as you don't interfere with that, it will go on forever. To make sure that the fire doesn't get out of control, the water puts the fire down. Mm-hmm. In order for the metal not to get out of control, the fire cuts through metal, like welding. To make sure that the wood doesn't get out of control, the metal, which is the sword, the blade, it chops the wood down.
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that the earth doesn't get out of control. The wood controls the earth. And then in order to make sure the water doesn't get out of control, the earth controls the water, like in rivers or dams. And now you've got a nurturing cycle. Wood feeds fire, fire becomes earth, earth becomes clouds, clouds rain. It makes the wood grow, which feeds the fire. But at the same time, the water controls the fire controls the metal controls the wood controls the earth, and the earth controls water. And it's just an incredible process. It's so simple, so profound. And the more you work with it, the more it opens up to a complexity that is beyond our comprehension of the mind, because it resonates on a soul level rather than on an intellectual level.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's simple resonates on a soul level. Everything what's complex is body, mind. It's the mind. It's not necessarily soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means when we incarnate into the physical world, we're entering this portal. And this portal is of the 5 elements. And when we enter this portal, we automatically take charge of a very specific element that then is our first contact with reality. So when we incarnate into this portal, when we enter this portal of the 5 elements of the physical, there's always an element that stands out, and that's our contact with reality. Yes? And that means everyone somehow is connected, is dominated by a specific element more than the other elements. That means we have a water type, we got a wood type, we got a fire type, and we got earth types. So this don't belong to the constellation of the stars and astrology. That's a different category. This is totally behavioral science. It's about the psychology, not the constellation. That's how you behave, your behaviors are shaped. That's a totally different world. Yeah. And so a lot of people think the 5 element types belong to the astrology. No, it's not. It's about something that unconsciously you draw to. So how do you know what type you are? And I'm going to show you going through some examples today. And so, for example, like the idea is to think back as early as you can to the time when you're like 3 years old, when you first became conscious about yourself. What dominated you? Okay, so when it comes to the 5 elements, we in fact have 5 very specific behavioral patterns. Okay, so for example, it's fearful, being moody, annoyed, anxious, not feeling real, not feeling wholesome, needing correct and sort it out because I feel guilty. So, okay, so these are the 5 element types in terms of your behavioral. That's you. So that means everyone, think back as far as you can. So that, and I'm going to give you an example of what my type is, my element type, so you can see what I mean with that. But so that means you are either fearful, that means you're water type. You're either always was slightly annoyed or moody, that means you're in the wood. You always were slightly anxious, that means you're the fire. When you always, when you were young, you always felt like not real, not feeling wholesome. That means you resonate with earth type. You always needed to correct or sort something out. You felt guilty about what the outer world is. And that means you are metal type. So it's fearful, annoyed or moody, anxious, not feeling real, needing to correct because I feel guilty. Yeah.
I'm putting them in the chat box for everyone.
So this is, I emailed you that today, all the stuff, yeah? Yep. That means, before I get into it, just showing an example, that means the fearfulness, that is what your starting point is. That's your weakness. But your true self, because it's water type, is wisdom. And I've shared that last time in the last 2 sessions. The true self, the 5 Shen. So the water of the true self is wisdom, insight, good judgment, unbiased. But I am, in my behavioral pattern, in my weakness, I'm fearful. The false self of that is secrecy, intimidating. Yeah. With the wood, you have the weakness as being annoyed, moody, or aggravated. Your true self, however, is benevolence, the acting kindness. But your false self is passive-aggressive, suppressed anger. The fire type, your weakness is anxious, but your true self is propriety, knowing the right thing, whereas your false self is lying in sarcasm. And then with the earth, you don't feel real, you don't feel wholesome, but your true self is in fact integrity, being honest and being whole. However, your false self, where we talked about the five evils in the last couple of sessions, is complaining and gaining favors. And with the metal, your weakness is needing to correct and sort it out. Your true self is righteousness, but your false self is pontification, dogma, and mocking. That's about the 5 Shen. We talked about it in the last few sessions. Yeah. Yep. So, but today I want to get more into the practical aspect, more into it. So that means this is basically today's session is directly a continuation of what we talked last 2 sessions about, but more now to the practical, which therefore is more the standalone practice. All right, for example, I'll give you an example of what I am and some other types, and then you can see how this works. So I am a water type. So as long as I remember, when I go right back into my early ages, when I was 3 years old, I was always fearful. This was independent to my parents' upbringing. My parents were very loving. I had really good parents, good family, no problems in that regard. But I always was slightly fearful. So that means I'm a water type. Obviously, my true self is insight, judgment, and wisdom, which is why I was drawn to becoming a teacher. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, however, how that relates into my life is because the fearful is kidney. Kidney stores will. So, for example, how it can cause pathology is because the water type, the emotion that comes with it is willpower. The water type very easily overuses the will. And that means in my situation, for example, when I use my will to work harder and longer. So what happens now is, as I work harder and longer, the water now controls the fire and puts the fire down. Fire is the seat of the heart, and the fire is responsible for depression. So if I use my will to overwork myself, I finish off in depression. So if I now would present it to a doctor, that would put me on antidepressants. That wouldn't heal anything. It's so common. I see this in you got to be aware, you've got 5 types in this world. So we say we've got 20 people today here. There will be at least 4 water types, 4 fire types. Yeah. Mm. So every client I work with, every situation I do in my clinic is always about identifying your type, because this is something you can't escape. So it doesn't take me long to work out what your type is. Usually in 1 session, I can see, there's water, metal. That means it's your dominating a behavioral pattern. It's your subconscious, unconscious behavioral pattern. And because I studied social pedagogics, which is based on Rudolf Steiner, we looked at the drives, the elemental drives that makes the child. So we need to understand by working with children what element they are, so we can guide them in the right direction so they understand how to work with their element. Except bring it back to my type as a water type. For me to heal, I need to understand, first of all, that with my will, I need to develop the ability to control my will. That means I need to know when to stop. So that means for me, I needed to use my will not to work harder. I needed to use my will in order to stop at a certain time. So say I work 3 hours on a project, bang, my alarm clock, stop, I stop. Because I know exactly I can't stop.
Okay.
Yeah, because water type will makes me not stop. Water type is like a racer that keep going. Yeah. Okay. So that means I finish off in depression. And if I finish off in depression, the fire can't nurture the earth. If it can't nurture the earth, I develop cardiovascular disease, I develop diabetes, I develop all kinds of problems, digestive problems, bloating, which then leads to I can't nurture the metal. That means I can't control my emotions. Now I become more and more impulsive. If I become more and more impulsive, I need medication to control myself to get back to the center. So Chinese medicine is always about trying to get center. Understand your element, understand who you are. That means if you're water type, you need to know when to stop. Yeah. Yeah. For example, another classic example of what a water type does, because the false self of the water type is intimidating. We talked about it last week. The Shen of the water, the 5 evil of the water is intimidating. So with me, because my weakness is fearful, because I'm always fearful. So when I discovered bodybuilding, wow, that was a match in heaven. Because I'm 1,095,000, which is 6'5", and then doing bodybuilding, my God, I can intimidate the crap out of everyone. Yeah. So bodybuilding became like my way of developing the false self. Yeah. So because I started off as a water element, fearfulness, that means the initial response is to go to intimidate. Yeah. So if I go to intimidate, of course, I override the fearfulness, but I'm developing my false self. That means I'm not healing myself. Yeah. So the idea is to understand that in order to work with my water element, I need to bring in the symptoms. Yes. And that's where obviously where we look at when we need to what's the journey of healing? Engage with your symptoms. As a water type, your main organ is kidney. That means the kidney has very specific symptoms, and there then will be your dominating symptoms as in your life. For example, with the water type, you most likely have always aching bones, sore back, swollen legs, weak knees, lethargy, and impaired hearing and tinnitus, and so on. So, okay, by understanding the symptoms that come with each of the organs, I then can start healing my weakness and move it into strengths, which then moves me to my true self. All right, so this is where my book Clock On comes into, because all the symptoms, each organ has got all the symptoms affiliated. Yeah, so obviously that's why I tell everyone you got to read Clock On, because in Clock On you will understand as what type you are, and you will understand what type you are, what is the dominating symptom in your life, and then how to engage with each of the symptoms. Yeah. So for example, if you're a metal type, that means if you're a metal type, that means you always got, like my wife, she's a metal type. So as long as she remembers, when she thinks back, she always wanted to correct her parents. She always wanted to tell her parents, you don't do this like that, you don't do it like that. So she always had that innate desire to correct people's behaviors.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the sense of feeling guilty about it, in the sense of feeling there's something not right here. Yeah. If this is not addressed via a healing journey, it would lead to into dogma, pontification, and mocking. That means I'm going to start not developing a false self, and that means I'm actually now starting to mock everyone, because the metal wants to correct others. Now I'm going to start mock everyone. Like you can tell, the internet is full with metal types. Yeah, there's a lot of metal types. Yeah. I actually sometimes comment like that. This really, really great realized metal type here because of the mocking. Yeah.
Okay, because there's so much mocking on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the dogma, mocking all the time, pontification. Yeah. And whereas if you know the symptom that comes with metal, what is the symptom of a metal type? And that's obviously, once again, I describe about it in my book, Clock over and over. And as a metal type, most of that means the organ you're affiliated with is the lung. And all the metal types I work with, they all have the problem that they have constantly suffering. They suffer primarily from dry mouth, dry throat, hoarse voice, the tickly throat, and then obviously can go into constant sweating, night sweating, and things like that. then the chest congestions, and a lot of neck problems. At the metal type, you have a lot. You're prone to injuries of the neck. A water type is prone to injuries of the knee. My injuries is all around the knee. My wife's injuries are all around the neck. Her knees are perfect. My neck is perfect. Yeah. So this is where it's obviously the different types. Yeah. So that means obviously as a lung metal type, you need to look at, okay, what are my dominating symptoms? And then in the healing journey, I bring the symptoms into my life. Yeah. And so I'm going to look at, okay, what is this? Yeah. And then a wood type, as long as I remember when I go back, are always slightly annoyed. They always have been slightly annoyed or moody about what happens. So thinking back right up when you were 3, 4, yeah. So that means there's always there's something that comes forward that is your dominating element, and that means you're primarily slightly on the annoyed side. Yeah. Yep. Of course, there's a question is can be a combination of people be a combination of elements. There's always a dominating element and other elements involved. You never have one element by itself. It's not possible. It's the dynamic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a dynamic. For example, if like in my example, I'm a water type. If I don't understand how to work with my will, and I violate my will, that means I put the fire down. I cause symptoms around the fire. So now, obviously, the dominating emotion will be depression, anxiety, can't think clearly. If I ignore that, it can't nurture the wood. Now it's going to now it will develop into chronic fatigue, tiredness, because the spleen can't produce qi and blood. So now it's obviously overthinking and mental overthinking and brain fog, the dominating emotion. Mm-hmm. So if I ignore that, it can't nurture the metal. Now it develops lung symptoms. That means I suddenly have stuffiness of the chest. I can't control my emotions. I become impulsive. So the more we ignore, the more the next element becomes the dominating element. Mm-hmm. However, if you in my work, when I work with clients, I transcend into the early stages of your awareness, to think back as far as you can to find your absolutely initial feeling. And that means you will find something like fearfulness, annoyed, anxious, needing to correct, or not feeling real. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you always will find something. And in there also, you will notice that you are always drawn to a very specific virtue. For example, if you're a water type, you might be fearful, but you're always drawn to judgment and insight and wisdom. So you may be drawn to politicians, or you may be drawn to masters or martial art, or you might be drawn to yogis. If you're a wood type, you're always slightly annoyed and moody as a young child. But at the same time, you were drawn to the acting kindness of the gurus or of Jesus or someone like that. So you were open to that sort of like religion. If you're a fire type, you were on the anxious side, but at the same time, you were attracted to knowing how to do the right thing. So this is where Chinese medicine comes into play, and it gives us the practical application of who you are. Chinese medicine understands you have entered as a soul this world by merging with the 5 elements. We give you now a practical application how to move towards greatness. Mm-hmm. So that means if fearfulness is your prime emotion, as long as you think back, not the one that's on the surface, the one deep down, that means we give you what you need. Yeah. So we show you the right practices. We show you what to do. We show you the right meditation techniques. We show you the foods to eat. Yes. And you then will be guided along the Chinese medicine. We will tell you, if you are an earth type, you will have very specific symptoms in your life. For example, as an earth type, you will most likely somehow always be affiliated with bloating, lack of appetite, chest congestions, and loose stool, but you don't know what to do about it. That means you gain weight, but you don't know what to do about it. So you can do all kinds of dieting, but it's not quite doing it. But most likely is because you're an earth type, because that means, okay, how can I deal with that? And then Chinese medicine provides us with the exact application of each of the symptoms. So this is once again where my book Clock On comes into, because in Clock On, it's like the hub of the wheel. So we're entering the physical, and instead of getting caught up in the periphery, that means we react to each of the elements, we're trying to enter the hub of the wheel, and that is the chi cycle. The chi cycle is we become the hub of the wheel. That means we're moving forwards while being centered. So we wake up to the metal element. So we engage with all the symptoms affiliated with the metal element, which may be our original pathology because our behavior, or it might be a progression of ignoring our true nature. Yeah? Either way, we will have a symptom at some stage that is the result of having not gotten in touch with our original element. Yeah. So that means the chi cycle allows us not to engage with each of the elements. That means I discover myself more and more. So by the end of the day, I have come full turn, and I return back to where I started. And now I've been through to the whole cycle. I looked at all 5 elements. I can see who I am. I have resolved a lot of the symptoms, and those symptoms that I engaged with, which then realized me how to move forward, make me happy and joyful. Yeah. And that means, obviously, now you can see how enormously complex and deep that chi cycle is.
Yeah.
That's what I said over and over. When I wrote that book, it's 35 years of research in there. I made 30 years of research as simple as possible, so that you, instead of reading all these complicated, complex texts that will tell you what element you are, I put it down in very simple steps. Yeah. So the chi cycle always starts with engaging with your symptoms. When you look at chapter 2 of the chi cycle of my book, it tells you how to get in touch with your symptom. Your main symptom is your element type. And in my book, Perfect Day Plan, which came out before, I talk about each of the elements. So if you work with large intestine, you're in the metal energy. Metal element is like that. The wood element is all about this. Yeah. So that means the healing journey is nothing else than actually understanding what each of the symptom is, and then bringing the symptom in line to a progress that moves you along towards greatness. Because every time you engage with each of the symptom, you heal your elemental connection. That means you're moving from your false self to your true self. Yeah. So you're moving from pontification and mocking to righteousness. You're moving from complaining and gaining favors towards integrity and being honest. You're moving from lying and sarcasm to propriety, knowing what. You're moving from passive aggression to benevolence, and you're moving from secrecy, intimidating, to fear, to wisdom. And you're getting insight and good judgment. So this is where. So when people say, I want to become wise in my life, I want to develop benevolence, a lot of people say, I want to become kind, I want to become a good person. In my line of work, having worked with drug addiction, that's what I hear all the time. I want to become a good person. What does it mean? Okay, you can't just say, I want to be good. But the next reactive pattern makes you do something stupid and you're back being bad. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So obviously this is where in Chinese medicine, we give practical steps of what does it mean to be good. So you focus on symptom. You focus on engaging with each of the symptom. As you engage with each of the symptom, you automatically improve your elemental connection. That means you will develop the organ. As you develop the organ, you will improve your behavioral patterns. You become good without you being aware of being good. You become good without you focusing on being good.
Mm. Yep.
It's absolutely profound. Chinese medicine is one of the most profound things I ever come across.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good. It makes you become an incredible, compassionate, loving, good person. And never once do you focus on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just an intellectual concept. It's a transformation of lifestyle, attitude, behaviors, mental, emotional, physical transformation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, so that's obviously where the whole journey comes into, that we need to understand. Once we engage with the symptom, we are in our element. How many times do we say that? I am in my element. When we feel flow, I am in my element.
Yeah, it feels
That's
so
exactly
good.
what it is. That's exactly what the healing journey is. The healing journey means by the end of the day, man, I am in my element. Yeah? And every 2 hours, we are given the opportunity to align with our elemental initial connection, and to correct the organ so that we become so we are in our element. So all day we aligning ourselves with the elements, so that we feel I am in my element. If you feel you are in your element, you are in joy. You're not conceptual. You don't live by dogma. You don't live by ideas. You are pure experience. You got a sacred experience of yourself.
Awesome, mate.
So
I'm taking notes. I get heaps of notes out of these chats.
well, that's pretty much in a nutshell what it is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, we've covered a heap of stuff again today. Just curious around like wood. So, could you just go a little bit into like some of the injuries or some of the things people would be prone to for wood, and then fire? We covered a lot for water and spleen and earth and metal. But what about wood and fire?
With the wood type, your prime organ is the liver. And with liver, you always have, like, the liver is your acid reflux, belching, hiccups, bitter taste, uh, sometimes difficult swallowing. You can get stomach upsets. You can go into, obviously, cramps, lots of cramps, moodiness, and so on, tightness in the chest, dizziness. So wood has got a very much impact on the overall. So that's pretty much like a lot's going on here.
Would it be injuries of like tendons, ligaments, joints, sort of stuff as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. But that always goes down to, if the organ is well, if the organ is healed, then you have strong blood and strong chi. As a result of that, your joints are always fluid.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
So you develop, for example, as a water type, you're prone to arthritis in knee and hip. Yeah. And so by working with what the water type requires, which is understanding how to make the qi flow via qi practices like Tai Chi and Qigong, and then eat the relevant foods in order to promote the kidney, you will actually, you manage the pain. And suddenly, it's not a concern. It's still there, but it's not a concern. And you may heal it to the point where you don't need anything. That's obviously why, first of all, we always want to give the body what it needs. So nutrients are required, obviously. That's why Chinese herbs are required. That's where redox is important. As I said to you over and over, like, redox is, from a Chinese medicine perspective, it's spleen, it's earth, and redox takes you into the hub of the wheel. It differs to all the other supplements, that redox it takes you to the hub of the wheel. That means it will take you to the center. So as opposed to a lot of the herbs that operate on the periphery and looking at specific organ function, redox takes you to the center, to the hub of the wheel. It makes you move.
Yep.
So you can keep moving.
Awesome. Any suggestions on the symptoms of fire, or where they would perhaps get injuries?
Yeah, obviously the fire symptom is always affiliated with agitation, sadness, always affiliated with depression. So cold hands, tightness in the chest, shortness of breath. So the fire makes the energy spread. If the fire burns brightly, everything moves. If the fire doesn't burn brightly, you got CVD, cardiovascular issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it all comes down to, if you've got cardiovascular issues, you always feel not real, feel something's not right. Yeah. And that means there's either sadness or agitation or confusion because of the mind affiliated with the heart. So that means the heart type is always very dependent on understanding of how to work with what makes the fire flow. Yeah. And that means that's where the fire type needs to understand how to make the wood nurture the fire. So that means controlling the emotion is crucial for fire types.
Okay.
Because if you control the emotions, you have the wood feeding the fire correctly. If you don't control emotions, you may not feed the fire, or you overfeed the fire. So either way, it's going to cause either an excess condition or deficiency pattern. So that means I need to understand how to get into the wood. And that means I need to work once again with regular acupuncture, and like this is where everything is like, therapy is essential for the journey of the healing. We need to have a connection we need to be reminded all the time. So that's why we need the mornings. We need to have the space for ourselves. So if your kids wake up at 5:30, the healing journey would start at 1 hour before the kids get up. Yeah. So, so the time is, you need the space for yourself to really read what is my main symptom, and then also utilize, for example, when you do Tai Chi, it will always take you to each of the elements, and after a while, you discover what your true element, your initial elemental connection was when you entered the physical. You understand after a while, I'm a water type, I'm an earth type. And that means you understand what you need in order to balance that, in order to bring it to your true self, rather than correcting and therefore bring up your false self, which leads to pathology.
Yeah, awesome.
Now, in Chinese medicine, how to heal yourself, it is always about becoming real about yourself, becoming your true self. That's what it is. If you become your true self, you are healing yourself. If you're becoming your false self, if you have mocking and pontification in your life, then it's a false self that can't heal the body. Yeah.
So the old, still a lot of truth and alignment with the ancient Greek universities, the mystic schools, where they said know thyself and you will know the secrets of the universe.
Yeah. That's it. So the worst thing we can do is to wake up and get involved with distraction. That is like what I said before. Like so many people, they get caught up in distraction, but then they have a smoothie for breakfast, and in order to do something healthy.
But they've already looked at their phone and they're already off.
Yeah, but it doesn't evoke the healing journey.
Yeah.
So I can't stress it enough. Electronic devices don't belong in the bedroom. It's a fact. Like my mobile phone is always, I switch it off by 8 p.m. and I don't turn it on till 8 a.m. So it's got a 12-hour fast. Yeah. And my mobile phone is on the exact furthest end from the bedroom. And I even turn off all the internet, we switch everything off. Yeah. So you got no. So that means nothing. So when I get up, I'm 3 hours involved with other things rather than the internet. So it doesn't matter what happens. It's just really, we need to develop the detachment to it. We've got no choice, because in the old days, you didn't know about work issues till you turned up at work.
Yeah, that is so true. Hey, and as like small business owners, entrepreneurs, and even like just anyone with a hardcore career, they're already thinking work before they turn up. It's like, if you're a six-figure earner in pretty much anything, it's almost like the job overtakes you unless you build these very strong disciplines.
Yeah.
To protect yourself from the job.
Yeah, we've got to be aware of it. We need, like if you want your mobile on, have it 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Yeah. All these devices where they have you charge your mobile beside your bed on the stall where your iWatch is right beside. All that is it leads to the collapse of society.
Yeah, bad news. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The wireless charging. Whoa,
Yeah.
electromagnetic fields.
It's just like all I see around me. I'm surrounded by signs of the collapse of society.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just like the like the Instagrammers that look gorgeous. I don't think that, and they might have this massive following, but I think there's a lot of detriment in the back. The shadow side of that is a decreasing self-image of a lot of people. A lot of people thinking they should look like this. They're seeing that popularity. The teenagers are so messed up because they see the perfect person on Insta and that everyone should be like that, and yet that person doesn't even know who they are.
Yeah. That's why we need the detachment to it. And obviously we are in a massive transformation, the opportunity to move life to the next level. And we obviously need to start speaking about this. Yeah. And obviously the young kids, yeah, they're enormously affected by all this. And that's obviously, oh my God, you can talk for 4 weeks on that one, how to get into that.
Yeah.
Because it's like peer group pressure and all kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God I didn't grow up in an era where social media existed.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's just crazy what goes on. So the idea is to actually, like the healing journey means, when I wake up, I have the raw confrontation with myself. I need to find me. If I don't find me in the mornings, the massive information overload that we have throughout the day, which is now so much more than it was 10 years ago, and so much more than it was like 500 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the information bombarded overload that we have now, if I can't find me in the mornings, I'm going to get swept away.
Yeah.
And the Tao Te Ching already stated that 2,500 years ago, that those who don't find themselves in the mornings will be swept away by the tide of the mundane world. And so that's obviously all the mundane world, all this mundane bullshit. And where does it lead you to? Yeah. And obviously it all comes down to the only thing that matters is, by the end of the day, how do you really feel within yourself? If you feel joyful about who you are on path, you're on track. If I don't feel joyful in myself, like as I said over and over, I love good red wine. I love eating cakes, and I enjoy, because by the end of the day, I feel good about myself. And I have a good glass of wine. Yes, it's great. Yeah. And I don't get caught up in the theory of what is the right food. I never go for that. I ask my body. My philosophy is, and I've seen this with everyone I work with, develop the discipline and the body will guide you.
Yeah.
Don't let theory guide you. If I drink a glass of wine in the evening, my body will tell me when to stop. Yeah, not the theory. Not someone tells me I should only drink 200 milliliters of red wine because 210 milliliters leads to cardiovascular disease. What a bullshit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know.
No one knows. The fact is, no one is. I know people who just drink far more and much healthier than people would never drink. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not straightforward. It's about how you are in yourself. The physical is a tough job. It's tough being here, and we need to find the things that we enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but for that, we need to actually be guided by our body, and the body is directly connected to the organs, and the organs is your 5 Shen. That's your guidance from heaven.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that saying. That quote you said. Those that don't find themselves in the morning will be swept away by the mundane world.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
If someone says what's the biggest problem in our life is mobile phone turned off before you finish your breakfast. It's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
That's what, that means find a moment for yourself. That's like, for most people, I found that incredible, that they can't do it. A lot of the people I work with, they go crazy, they go nuts. Yeah. They wake up and 10 minutes without the phone is already causing behavioral problems.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I love, like, when you've got your own business, when you've got control of your life, you're the master of your destiny, you can actually start to design your life, schedule your life.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and even if you're employed by someone, that by rights they're not allowed they don't contact you till you turn up at work. That's the law.
Have some boundaries. Yeah, have some boundaries with your work. Have some boundaries with your phone.
Yeah, if everyone sets up boundaries, life will start working.
Yeah, awesome. Jim Rohn says success is a few small disciplines practiced every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's amazing, Jost. Thank you so much. That was like heaps of content in that. I hope you got the notes, everyone. You can save the chat. If you've never saved the chat, there's 3 little dots. If you click on the chat box, there's 3 little dots, and it actually says save chat. So you can save all those notes, or you can copy and paste it into a Word doc or something like that. But I put about the true self of the different elements in there. And obviously there's links to Jost's website where you can buy his book, Clock on Health. Is fantastic. If you want to learn more about redox technology, the same link every Tuesday night at 7:30. This week we had a testimonial from a guy, just mind-blowing, just the different things that changed in his life over a 5-month period. And he was a guy that was healthy. He considered himself to be healthy. He had a bit of an injury because he's like in his 50s doing jiu-jitsu. And then just found amazing things happen because he got the chi flowing. So that was pretty cool. You can join us anytime there. Stephanie, yes, I will send you my notes, Stephanie. That's all good. I've got your number. So wish you all the very best. Jost, you're a legend. Love it. Let's leave it on that quote. Those that don't find themselves in the morning will be swept away by the mundane world.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. All the best.
Thanks, mate.
Yep.
See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.